Okay. Now, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to start with exam 3 practice because it's the most like what you're going to be seeing. And so we'll work our way through those, and then we'll start working our way through the rest of these. Okay, so I see number 1 is up there, and let's make sure that this is the one that you're talking about. The company's considering a project that will cost $100. Is that right? Okay. The project will generate after-tax cash flows of $39.50 per year for 5 years. The WACC is 8% and the firm's total debt ratio is 0.6. The flotation cost for equity is 7%. Flotation cost for debt is 4%. Your firm doesn't plan on issuing any preferred stock within its capital structure. If your firm follows the practice of incorporating flotation costs into the project's initial investment, what is the firm's flotation adjusted cash flow in year 0? Let's talk about the things they gave you that you don't actually need. How about this after-tax cash flow during the years after year 0? You don't need that, right? Because we're talking about time 0. What about the weighted average cost of capital? Has not one thing to do with what we're talking about. We will need this. We will need that. We will need that. Okay, so I think we're ready to go. So, the first thing we've got to do is figure out what is our percentage-wise weighted average cost of capital. And that's going to be total debt over total assets times the flotation cost of bonds plus total equity over total assets times the flotation cost of stocks. Have I lost anybody yet? Okay, we've been given this and this. What we need to do is figure out what these weights are. Now they've given us the debt to, or the total debt ratio. Man, they've made it easy. Do you see the total debt ratio up here?
Yeah.
It's right here, right? So we're going to do 0, is it 0.6? Is that right? And that's going to be multiplied by what's the flotation cost of debt? 4%. 4%. Plus, if this is 0.6, what does this have to be? 0.4 times 7%. And so what we end up with here is 0.24. Yeah. I'm sorry, I'm messing with you there by switching between decimals and percentages. Okay, it's going to be, what, 2.4% plus 2.8%? Is that right? Mm-hmm. And that's going to be 5.2%. Now we look back and we think about this formula. Amount to be raised, which is what we're looking for, this year 0 cash flow, is equal to the amount needed divided by 1 minus the weighted average flotation cost. Sorry about that, that's just a force of habit. Did you guys see that? I changed WACC to WAF.
That can also be F0, right?
Yes, very good. Okay, now, how much do we need for the project? $100? Does that sound right? Boop, there it is, $100. Divide by 1 minus 0.052. How did I get 0.052? Yes, 5.2% divided by 100% gives us 0.052. So if someone could please do this in their calculator, here's the way that I would do it if I were you. I would do 1 minus 0.052, and then I would hit equal, and then the 1 over x button. And then I would multiply that by 100. Tell me what you get.
105.489.
Yeah, 105.49. Okay, what's the trickiest thing about this? Number 1, they give you more information than you need. Number 2 is knowing that total debt ratio is TD over TA. Number 3 is knowing that the weights have to add to 1. If you can get all those things down, then you're good to go. Plus, should you have this formula on your note sheet? Yeah, and know that this amount needed is your initial investment in the asset, not including these weighted average flotation costs. Questions?
What'd you say total debt ratio was?
This is total debt ratio right here. Go back to chapter 3, that's what we call that right there.
And that's also equal to E divided by D plus E.
This would be equal to D divided by D plus E. It's debt, right? Does that make sense? Yeah, he's absolutely right. TD plus TE is equal to TA, which is why when you add those two things together, they equal 1. Other questions? Okay, I think we are done with that one. Now we are on to number 3. Let's see if I can make this bigger for you guys to see. Boom, boom, boom. Jax IT has 5 million shares of common stock outstanding, 1 million shares of preferred stock outstanding, and 20,000 bonds. If the common shares are selling for $25 a share, the preferred shares are selling for $12 per share, and the bonds are selling at 99% of par, what would be the weight used for common equity in the computation of Jax WAC? Okay, so what we've got to do here is figure out the market value of the common, we've got to figure out the market value of the preferred, and we've got to figure out the market value of the debt. And the total assets is going to be equal to C plus P plus D. So that's going to be the number. We divide all of those to come up with the weight for each one of them. They're only asking for the weight on common equity. Okay, so up here, we know we've got 5 million, and how much is each share worth? 25. I think that's 125 million. Does that sound right? Okay. Now, the preferred, they tell us there is 1 million outstanding. Oh man, this math's going to be really easy. Multiplied by 12 bucks. Very good. By the way, Mr. Ali says he may be late, so we should give him a hard time when he shows up. Okay, and then finally the debt. Okay, it's selling at 99% of par. So we've got 0.99. What's par value unless I tell you otherwise? 1,000. That's spooky sounding. And how many bonds are outstanding?
20,000.
20,000. 20,000. So this times this is 20 million. 99% of 20 million, I think is... Oh, for shame, he's very late.
I'm sorry.
Okay, I think this is 19.8 million. Does that sound right? Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, now, if we add all these things together, 125 plus 12 is 137, 146.8, is that right?
I got 156.
156.8, you're right.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, now, can anyone tell me how we're going to find the weight on common equity? Yeah, it's going to be 125 divided by,
56.
and this is millions, right? That's 156.8. Now, you notice I am not doing anything with the millions here. Why not?
This is 0.
Yeah, they cancel out, right? Okay, so can someone do this math on their calculator?
I got 0.797. Well, times 100 would be 79.
Yeah, 79?
71.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go. Does everybody get that? Okay, now, if we were going ahead and doing the weighted average capital, cost of capital on this thing, the formula would look like this. It'd be W sub C times C plus W sub P times P plus W sub D times D times what? Yeah, 1 minus T. That would be the formula if we were doing weighted average cost of capital. And these different weights would be calculated in exactly the same way. So P would be 12 million divided by 156.8 million. The weight on D would be 19.8 million divided by 156.8 million. You can check your work, making sure those weights all add up to 1. Because you remember that mistake I made over here? If I had done that and then my weights would have added up to more than 1, I would have known I had a mistake somewhere. Okay. Careful when you're doing these problems. Sometimes, instead of saying the required return on common stocks is, they'll say the required return on equity. Well, in theory, this is also a kind of equity. Don't let that freak you out, because it will give you a separate required return on preferred. So don't let that freak
So
you out.
do we add them together?
No, keep them separate. So the weight on common, you want to multiply by the required return on common, or sometimes it's called the required return on equity. They'll give you a different preferred, and you multiply that by the weight on preferred. You can't just add them together. Common question, but no, you can't.
So if it's asking what for equity, we just do common stock.
Yeah, so if it gives you the required return on equity, you just assume that's common stock. I don't think I've got any of those on the exam.
That's good.
But, just in case, there you go. Okay, questions before we move on? Yeah.
Yes, where did this D come from? I was doing this and, I know how we got the answer.
Okay, so it says that the bonds are selling for 99% of par. What's the par value of a bond, unless I tell you otherwise?
1,000?
Yeah, so 0.99 times 1,000 tells us these things are selling for $990 a piece. How many of them are outstanding?
20,000.
20,000. So I've got 990 times 20,000 gives me 19.8 million. Other questions? Okay. Now, question number 4. Oh, I should be marking these off. 1, 3. Now we're on to number 4.
What will be the tax?
Second.
So what will be the T in that number?
Oh, so we aren't actually being asked to figure that out, so they're not telling it to us in this problem. They could have, but you wouldn't need it. Things that we're also missing for being able to solve that are the required return on common, the required return on preferred, and the yield to maturity on the debt. Be sure to read the question first, because then you may not have to muck with the rest of it, right? There may be information you don't need. So for here, I'm going to take my advice and go down and look at what they're asking for. And they're asking for whack. And that means we're going to have to do the whole darn thing. So let's start. I think we're just going to, let's see, we got preferred? Yeah. I'm just going to go ahead and erase all this stuff, and we will start again. Okay, so common, 20 million shares, multiplied by, what's the share price? 19. Is that 380 million? Okay, now, the preferred,
40 million.
40 million. Did they even make us do any math there? No, they just gave it to us, right? And they have 400,000 bonds outstanding. And what do they tell us about the bonds? Selling at 98% of par value. So we're going to multiply by 0.98 times, Mr. Ali, what's the par value of a bond?
1,000.
Very good. Okay, so this is 400 million times point,
100,000.
oh, sorry, well, so I'm multiplying these two together.
Okay.
400 million times 0.98, so I'm thinking this is 394 million, is that right?
392.
392, sorry. Okay, now we can add these things together. We've got 420 million plus 812 million, is this 812 million?
Yes.
Okay, 812 million. Now, can anyone tell me how to figure out the weight on the common?
Divide the common by the weighted average. Flip up and see.
Divided by what?
The 812.
Very good. Thanks. Can anyone tell me how to do the weight on preferred?
The same thing.
The same thing.
40 divided by 812.
Thank you. I realize you're doing most of the work here. I'll start calling on other people. The weight on the debt, Ms. Black, how would I do the weight on the debt? Yeah, 392 divided by 812. Now here's what I would do if I were you. I would do this math. I would store it in location 1. I would do this math and store it in where do you think?
Location 2.
Yeah, very good. And I would do this math and store it in
3.
3. Very good. Okay, now we know, so we've got this number, we've got this number. Oh, by the way, this is required return, right? Sorry, I wrote that a little weird. So this is the weight on common times the required return on common, the weight on preferred times the required return on preferred, plus the weight on debt times the required return on debt times 1 minus t. Okay, so we've got all these weights. And if you want to make sure, you could say recall 1 plus recall 2 plus recall 3, make sure they all add to 1. Okay, next, we need to figure out what these required returns are. They tell us that the cost of, oh, here it is. The cost of equity is 16%, the cost of preferred is 13%, and the cost of debt is 9%. Let's put the ones in that we know for sure without even a question. We know that's 9%. What's the return on preferred?
13.
13%. Sounds like whales having a party. Now, based on our earlier talk, what is the required return on common stocks?
16.
Yeah, it's just 16, right? So don't let that equity talk flip you out. Okay, so basically what I've got here is recall 1 times 16% plus recall 2 times 13% plus recall 3 times 9%. And here's what I do. I do this all individually. And I would say this as 4. I would say this as 5. And I would say this as 6. And then I just say recall 4 plus recall 5 plus recall 6. Anybody want to give that a shot? $10.7.
4, I have 4.
Okay, so she's got.
3, I have 10.7, 3, 4, 9.
Oh, so this is 7.73 because it rounds down. Okay. Oh, by the way, we didn't mention what is the tax rate?
40%.
How much?
40%.
40. Dang. What are these Europeans? Oh, so this needed to be here, right? And then you'd say that as.
0.6.
Oh, sorry, yeah, 0.6. Dang. Yeah. Any questions on that one?
So the cost of equity in this case is the common stock.
Yep. I thought you were here when I said all that. Who knows? Okay, Don't feel bad. I only learn, if the first time I hear something, I only get about half of it, right? So if I say something twice, hopefully people are getting, what, 75%? You know, half of half. Okay, other questions? Yeah?
So cost of and required rate of return are the same.
Yep. Cost of debt, required return of debt, yield to maturity, all mean the same thing. And what happens if they give you the after-tax cost of debt? It would be this whole thing right here. That's the after-tax cost of debt. Would you need to multiply the after-tax cost of debt times 1 minus t? Nope, it's already taken out of it. Yield to maturity is the before-tax cost of debt. Questions? Okay, so that was number 4. It looks like we are now on to number 8.
I have a question.
Yep, go ahead.
So for the preferred,
Yeah.
right? Or for any, I would have to do it as a percent, right, not times by 100. So I would do, so for example, for the comment, I would do the 46.79 times 16% and not just 16 as a whole.
Oh, so here's what, no, don't ever use that freaking percent button on your calculator. Please, please, please don't ever use that button. I don't even know why they put it on there. Maybe, I don't know.
Okay.
Okay, so here's what I want you to do. If you're looking at this, as long as you are consistent, so you can do 16, 13, and 9, and it will give you a percentage. What if I use 0.16, 0.13, and 0.09? What would this come out as? 0.1073, and then I'd multiply by 100 to get the percentage. As long as you're consistent, if you put in all percent, you'll get percent. If you put in all decimals, you'll get decimals. Don't ever, ever, ever use that percent key on your calculator. I hate that thing.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, now we were on to question number 8. Compute the payback statistic for project X and recommend whether the firm should accept or reject the project with the cash flows as follows if the appropriate cost of capital is 9% and the maximum allowable payback is 4 years. Now, they're telling us to compute the payback statistic. Do we even need the cost of capital? No. If we were computing that piece of crap discounted payback, we would need it. But remember, discounted payback is meatloaf. If we have enough to do discounted payback, we have enough to do NPV. Okay, so I'm going to clean this board off. And the way that I would advise you to set this up on your scratch paper would look something like this. T, 0, is it through 5? 4. Yeah. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then we're going to have our cash flows here. What's the cash flow at time 0? Negative 1,500. What's the cash flow at time 1? Negative 100. What's the cash flow at time 2? Positive 150. Time 3? Positive 150. Then there's a 0. And then there's a 2,500. Okay, now, what's the next step in solving this thing?
Define the balances.
Yeah, find the balances. So, we start off minus 1,500. If I lose another 100 in time 1, what do I have?
Minus 16.
Yeah, minus 1,600. And now we're up 150. I think that is minus 1,450. Is that correct? And then we gain another 150 here. I think that's minus 1,300. Is that correct? Okay, now, time 0, what happens to my balance?
Minus 13,000.
Yeah, it stays the same, right? Because there's no money coming in. And then the balance here would be plus 1,200 bucks. Now, our calculation says we start with the year number that has the last negative balance. So that's going to be 4 plus And then we take the money that still needs to be paid back, which is 1,300, but we don't make it negative. We think of it in terms of the amount that we owe. We owe $1,300. And then I divide by what? Yeah, the money that I get in the next year. Like that? And so this is going to be somewhere close to a half. What do I get when I do that number? 1,300 divided by 2,500, or just 13 divided by 25? Yeah, 0.5, or 0.52, right?
Yeah.
So we're going to get 4.00 plus 0.52. Payback is in 4.52 years. Now, do we accept or reject that project? Reject it. Why?
It's negative.
Yeah, it's more than 4 years. Remember, our arbitrary payback cutoff was 4 years. This is taking 4.52. We accept things that pay back on or before the arbitrary cutoff. This pays off after, so we reject it. Other questions? Okay, that was number 8. Now we are on to number 10. Okay, when you see something like this, the first thing I want you to do is jump to the end. Now, if they were asking for NPV here, you should skip it. Save it to the end. But they're not. They're asking simply for the change in net working capital that occurs at the end of year 1. So as we read through here, what we're going to do is look for things that are just going to give us information about net working capital. They tell us that they estimate the sales price to be $40 a unit and the sales volume to be 6,000 units in year 1, 9,000 in year 2, 2,500 in year 3. The project has a 3-year life. Variable costs are $10 a unit and fixed costs are $75,000 a year. Net working capital requirements at the beginning of each year will be approximately 20% of the projected sales in the coming year. So the first thing we're going to do, 0, 1, 2, 3. That's really all, actually just 0, 1, and 2 is all we really need to do. Because they're asking for the change in NWC that occurs at the end of year 1. So all we have to know is what's the net working capital for year 2 and what is it for year 1, and we can just subtract, right? Okay. Now let's look at sales. Sales at time 0. Oh, actually, no, I do need 3 here because it's going to be involved in figuring. We'll get there in a minute. Okay, so what are the sales going to be for year 1? It's going to be 6,000 times 40, which is what, 240,000?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, and then year 2, 9,000 times 40, I think that's 360,000, is that right?
Yeah.
And then year 3, 2,500. 2,500 times 40, is that 100,000? Yeah, 100,000. Okay, now we can figure a net working capital for each year. How do we figure that? They tell us it's going to be 20% of the projected sales of the coming year. This is the projected sales for year 1. What net working capital would that impact? Yeah, no. See, we're looking for the coming year. So if we're looking for time 0, we're actually looking at year 1. And so what does the net working capital here need to be? Is 48,000, right? Okay. Now, if we're looking for net working capital here, what year should I be looking at?
Year two.
Yeah, year 2. Is that 72,000?
Yeah.
And if we're looking for net working capital here, what year should I be looking at? Year 3. That one's the easiest of all, 20,000. We're looking at 20%, right? Okay, now, are our numbers right?
I don't even know how you get those numbers.
Okay, so the sales price will be $40 a unit. 40 times 6,000 gives us 240,000. This one, year 2, they say 9,000. So 9 times 40, 360,000. Is that right? Okay. Now, year 3 is
25 times 40.
yeah, 2,500. Okay, so far so good. Now, to start off with, we've got to have 20% of 240,000. Then we've got to have, at time 1, we've got to have 20% of 360,000. And here we've got to have 20% of year 3. Now, they're asking us what change occurs at the end of year 1. Okay, so at the end of year 1, we go from 72,000 to 20,000. Oh man, what changed in networking?
Just take it off the exam.
No, I'm sorry. It should be 72 minus 48,000, shouldn't it? Because all cash flows happen at the end of the year. So 72 minus 48 is 24,000. Folks, I'm sorry, I just lost it there. Has anyone done this and gotten 40? Yeah, so what we could do is say, save and submit, and then we'll make sure that's correct. Yeah, whatever. Click OK to view results. Yeah. Whew. Yeah, hey, and now we've got the correct answers going forward, right? Okay, don't you wish you could do that on the exam?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry about that. Now we are on to number 11. That's number 10, that's number 11. Oh, your firm needs a machine which costs $100,000. It requires maintenance, $5,000 for each year. It has a 3-year life. After the 3 years, the machine will be replaced. It falls into the Macker's 3-year class category. Assume a tax rate of 35% and a discount rate of 10%. If the machine can be sold for $20,000 at the end of year 3, what is the after-tax salvage value? Okay, let's start with the end and work our way back. After-tax salvage value is equal to market value minus taxes times market value minus book value. Do we know market value?
Yes,
Yes. How much is it?
5,000.
Ooh. The machine can be sold for,
100,000.
assume a tax rate and a discount rate. If the machine can be sold for $20,000 at the end of year 3, it's $20,000. Minus, what's the tax rate? 35%. Multiplied by, what's market value?
20,000.
20,000. Minus the book value. That's the part that we don't have yet. Okay, now, there are 2 ways to go about this. You could either calculate 33.33% and that would be your year 1 depreciation. You could calculate 44.45% and that would be your year 2 depreciation. You could do your year 3, 14.81% times the initial investment, and then you add all those depreciations up. That's your accumulated depreciation, and you subtract it from the historical cost. That would give you the book value. Would you like to know an easier way?
Yes.
Yeah, take a look at this. How much of this thing is left that has to be depreciated to get us to 0? 7.41%. So instead of doing all that other garbage, couldn't I just say that the book value here is 7.41% of 100,000? I mean, feel free to do that if you want, but I'm just gonna say like that. Does that look right?
No,
No.
I get
Oh, 100.
That's
over
correct.
100,000.
Yeah, remember, it's historical cost. And so each one of these depreciation amounts is gonna be equal to 100,000 times the percentage. And we know they have to add up to 100% because Mackers always takes us to 0. And so the amount that we have left to depreciate after all that time is 7.41%. 7.41% of the historical cost of $100,000 better be 7,410. Okay. Now, I don't have a calculator on me. Can anyone do this math and tell us what they get? By the way, what I would do this first, and I would multiply it by 0.35, and I would store that in location 1. And then I would take 20,000 minus location 1, or I could just hit the plus minus and add 20,000. Either way, what do we get?
6,593.5.
Yep, there we go. Okay. Woohoo, we just have one more, and then we can jump on some other stuff. The following data on a merger is given. Firm A, and they tell us the individual stuff. Firm B, they tell us the individual stuff. By the way, did they have to tell us that Firm A has a total value of 10,000?
No.
No, how would we have known?
Total shares into price.
Yeah, price per share times total share gives us the total value. And we see that both Firm A and Firm B, that's true. And they're telling us that A is going to acquire B at a price of $20 per share for Firm B stock. So $20 per share is a $10 premium, right? Because it's 20 minus 10. What will be the post-merger price for Firm A stock if Firm A pays in cash? And then, this is important to read, total value of Firm AB, that's the merged firm, represents the total value in a stock acquisition, which is where all the value remains in the firm. So in other words, if we were doing an all-stock acquisition, it would be the standalone value of A plus the standalone value of B plus delta V, which is that incremental change in the value created by the merger. Well, in this case, we could go back, if you wanted to do the math, 10,400 minus, or 11,200 minus 10,400, the incremental value here is $800. We could do that. I could also ask you the merger premium, which we've already talked about, would be $10 per share, or 10 shares times, or $10 a share times 40 shares would be, what, $400. But what they're asking here is what's going to be the value in a cash acquisition? What happens when Firm A offers $20 per share for the 40 shares outstanding? How much cash flows out of the company?
8,000.
How much?
800.
800, very good. 800. And so what we're really looking at here, all we have to do is say 11,200 minus the 800 that left leaves us with 10,400. That 10,400, what happens to the Firm B shares? What happens to them? They're gone, right? They totally disappear because we paid cash. How many shares then are left in overall Firm AB? Yeah, just 100, right? And so all we have to do is take that 10,400 that we just calculated and divide by 100, and it gives us $104 per share. Now, one thing to note, it is pure coincidence that the total value of Firm A plus the total value of Firm B added together is the value of Firm A after the merger. How did we get that? We looked at that firm AB, which was the value if they did a stock merger, and we subtracted the cash. That's how we got there. So don't let that freak you out. Questions?
Can you go back, what if it's stock acquisition again? Like
If it were a stock-
Instead of cash?
Yeah, if it were a stock acquisition, oh my goodness. I'm gonna have to erase some board here.
We did that.
Yeah, so-
Yes, right.
If it's a stock acquisition, the first question you've got to ask yourself is, how many shares does firm A have to issue to get this amount of money for firm B? Well, they're paying 800. That's the number of shares is going to be what they're paying for the other firm, which is 800, and then divide by firm A's share price.
How did you get the 800? Is it the total earnings?
No. They told us they're offering $20 per share for firm B. And how many shares are outstanding?
Oh, so 20 times 40?
Yeah.
Thank you.
And there are no earnings involved here at all. So that shouldn't show up. Okay, now 800 divided by how much did each one of those shares cost? Yeah, 100.
Shares.
And so they have to issue 8 shares. Now, how many shares are now inside the firm? Yeah, so we've got 108 shares total. Let's go ahead and write that down. And if I wanted to find out the per share price now, what would I do?
Divide?
Very good. What am I going to divide?
I don't know.
You don't know. You got the right instinct.
Right.
I like your stuff.
Yeah, I'm gonna write it down.
Yeah, so remember we said that the value of the firm in an all-stock merger would be how much? 11,200. 11,200 divide by how many shares? 108. Can anyone do that math for me?
I'm gonna make sure you might say.
103.7, is that it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so 103.7. Now, the question I could ask was, what's the NPV for this project? And one of the things that we're going to have to ask is, what is the cost to A to acquire B? And you'll instantly want to say 800, but it's not. Why not?
It would be 8 times 103.7.
Yeah, so it'd be the cost to acquire is equal to 103.70 times 8. Yeah, we could also ask about the NPV. Remember that the NPV that we calculate is to the original shareholders of the bidding firm. This share price went from 100 to 103.70. That's an increase of $3.70 per share. How many shares were outstanding to begin with? Yeah, so we've got 100. Well, actually, I'll go ahead and write it out for you. 103.70 minus 100 times 100. I think we're looking at $3,700. Is that right? 3.7 times, no, $370. Sorry about that. $370. That's the NPV of the project. And remember, that's always measured to the bidding shareholders. Because after all, this is an acquisition, this is a project that their management is undertaking. And what's the goal of financial management? Maximize shareholder wealth. The managers of the bidding firm, are they responsible for maximizing the wealth of the target firm shareholders? Absolutely not. They're responsible to their own. And so this is what we calculate to figure out whether it's a good thing or not. Is this a good acquisition based on that number? Yeah, how do we know? It's positive. Questions?
So that 11,200, that was given, right?
Yep.
But we don't calculate it.
No, it's right there.
You would give that, right?
Of course. I will never give you a problem that you don't have enough information to solve.
So would you give like a 10,400 and would you give like? oh,
Okay, so I'm.
Would you give 800 separate on the test like?
Oh, no.
Incremental one,
It's
yeah.
gonna look a whole lot like that. How about that?
Okay, good.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, other questions? Boom. Okay, I believe, was that number 17? Was that number 11? Yeah, that was number 17. So now we are done with exam 3 practice. Of the remaining chapters, which do you want to see first?
17.
7 and 17 is what I'm hearing, right? So we're gonna go 7, and we've only got 1 there, and then we'll go with this second. And then we'll talk if we still have time. Okay. Yeah, this chapter 7 was gonna be easy. I think we may have already covered what you need to know. Preview number 3. And you're wanting to know what the payback period is. Consider the following cash flows of 2 mutually exclusive projects. So all we have to do is figure out the payback for each one. So let's do them one at a time. AZM is the first one. And how many time periods are we looking at? 0, 1, 2, 3. And then we have the cash flows. The first cash flow for AZM is minus 485,000. And then cash flow time 1 is 327,000.
Time 2 is 194.
194,000, thank you. And what's time 3?
157,000.
Very good. Does that look right to everybody? Okay, what's my next step? Balance. So, minus 485,000 to begin with. We add 327,000. What does that give us in a balance?
Negative.
Negative how much?
158,000.
Does everybody get that? Okay, now 194,000. We add that in, what do we get?
36,000.
36,000 positive, right?
Yeah.
Now, do we actually have to go any further than that? No, because we've already changed signs from, we know the break even is somewhere between here and here. My procedure tells me take the year number for the last negative balance, which is 1, and then add the amount of money I still owe. How much do you still owe at time 1? Yeah, 158,000, and we remember it's positive, not negative. And then we're going to divide by how much? Yeah, 194,000, the money from the next year. So if I take 158,000 and divide by 194,000 and then add 1, what do I get? How much?
1.81.
1.81. Okay. And that's what they're getting. Whoever asked for this question, do you need to see it again more? You're good? Okay. So now we're on to chapter 17. And we've got practice. Boom. And then we've got 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay, use the option information shown below to answer the questions that follow. The stock is currently selling for $30. The first one says, suppose you buy 13 contracts of the February 31 call option. How much will you pay ignoring commissions? Okay, how many shares is each contract?
100.
100. So if you buy 13 contracts at 100, that's going to be 1,300. Okay, now, February 31 call option. By the way, it's not February the 31st date. 31 is the strike price. And they're telling us that the last price that those calls sold for was 0.53. So, let's see, if I'm buying that, I'm going to be paying 1,300 times 0.53. How much is that?
689.
How much?
689.
689. Does everybody get that? Let's roll down and see, do they give us answers here? Yep, 689. Very good.
Isn't it like a premium you have to pay on top of that? No?
No, well, transactions costs, so your broker would probably charge you 10 or 20 bucks per contract.
So it's not there then?
No, in fact, they say, ignoring commissions. Did you see that part? Okay. Now, suppose you buy 13 contracts, the February 31 call option, and the Microsoft stock is selling for $33 per share on the expiration date. By the way, if the shares are selling for 33 and the strike price is 31, are those in the money or out of the money? In the money. By how much? $2. And so, how much is your total options investment worth? At that point, we're looking at $2 times 1,300, which is 2,600, which is what they're saying down here. And they're rightly calling it the payoff at that point. Now, is that the profit? Now, if I were going to do profit, I would have to subtract out that. Okay. Now, what if the terminal stock price is $32? Well, it's just $1 in the money, so $1 times 1,300 gives us 1,300. Let's see. Suppose you buy 13 contracts of the August 31 put option. So the August 31 put option is, let's see, what are you buying it for? August 31. You're buying it for $2.40. And are we still doing 13 contracts? Yeah. And look at this. Suppose you're buying. Okay. So, what is your maximum potential gain? So, you're buying it for, let's figure that out first. You're paying, is it 2.4? Yeah. So, how much is that? 31.20. Now, what's the most that such a thing will ever pay off? The strike price, right? Let's see. The maximum potential gain. And so if it could go, as long as it drops below the strike price, you could gain the entire amount of the strike price, right? If that stock goes to zero, you could gain the entire amount of the stock, or that would pay off that much. And so we're going to have 1,300 times the strike price of 31. What is that? 40,300. And if we take 40,300 and subtract 3120, what do we get? 37,180. You see how that works? Okay, now let's see. On the expiration date, Microsoft is selling for $26 per share. What's the strike price? 31. Is this in the money or out of the money? It's in the money because it's a put option, right? And how much per share is it in the money? 5. And we've got 5 times 1,300. I'll bet this is going to be 6,500. And there it is. Now, it says, what would be your net gain? Well, all I have to do then is take that 3380. Sorry. Which one are we looking at here?
Okay.
So we've talked about we're talking about C3, right? What's your net gain? And so it would be this maximum gain, the positive value minus what it costs to get in, which is this amount right here. And so we had 6,500 minus 3,120 would give us 3,380. Okay, now suppose you sell 13 of the August 31 put contracts. So first of all, let's find out what that's going to bring in money-wise. How much are the August 31 puts going for? $2.40. So we're going to have 1,300 times 2.40. Someone's already got this number. What is it?
3120.
3120. Yeah, it's the same number we had just earlier. This is just the other side of the transaction, right? Okay, now on the expiration date, Microsoft is selling for $5, or for $26 a share. So it's in the money by $5 per share. Now, if you're the one that sold the option, are you happy that it's in the money? No. And so how much is this going to, let's see, what is your net gain or loss if it's selling at, oh crap, we've jumped again, haven't we? To 28 at expiration. So is it in the money by $3? Does that make sense? Okay, so what's your net gain or loss? So if it's selling at $3 per if it's out of the money by 3, that means you're losing $3 per share, but you sold for how much? $2.40 per share? Now we could go ahead and do the number here. 3 times 1,300 is how much? 3,900. And that's going to be negative because that's money out of your pocket, right? And we're going to add back 3,120. And when we do that, we get 780. Now, what's your net gain or loss if it's selling for 34 at expiration? So, the strike price is 31. What's the value of this option if the stock price is 34 at expiration? 0. So basically, you're just going to get a gain of all the money that you got when you sold. Does that make sense? Because you're not losing any money because it's not getting exercised. Okay, so what is the break-even price? That is the terminal stock price that results in 0 profit. And it would be, we take the strike price, 31, minus the premium of $2.40, gets us to $28.60. At that point, if you're the one that sold that option, you are losing exactly as much on the exercise as you gained on the premium. That's why it's the break-even point. What if you were the one that bought that? If I bought it for $2.40 and I am strike price of 31, that means it has to get down to $2.80 or 20. Yeah, so it has to get down to the same price. So the break-even point is the same for buyer and seller. Am I going to put anything that long in detail on the exam? Unlikely, very unlikely.
What would you like have it? Like, would you ask to touch profit or touch AR? What would you ask?
It's going to look a whole lot like what you see on exam 3 practice.
Okay.
Yeah. The reason I started doing this is because I went out and looked at ratemyprofessor.com and I looked at my teaching evaluations. And by the way, my teaching evaluations haven't changed any. As far as the numbers go, Rate My Professor, apparently whoever goes out there is really sour. Anyway, long story short, the big complaint that's voiced in both of them is that the exam questions don't look enough like anything you've ever seen before. And so that's why I'm doing this. And so if you want to know what the exam questions are going to look like, there you go.
We appreciate you for that though.
Oh,
And
well,
hopefully you may see, a change in,
yeah, hopefully.
especially for me.
By the way, if you guys enjoyed the class and you're pleased with some of this stuff, by all means, feel free to go out there to Rate My Professor and say, he fixed this shit. Thanks for griping, right? Or whatever you want to do. Let's see, that was chapter number 2. Do number 3. A stock is currently selling for $70 per share. A call option with an exercise price of $74 sells for $3.50 and expires in 3 months. The risk-free rate, I'm already smelling a put-call parity here. And the price of a put option is the same exercise price. Yeah, that's definitely put-call parity.
But did you notice the formula they used?
Well, I can tell you which one it is. It's the one with the E. Yeah.
But when we were practicing the other day, we used the one you said to use, and we were off by a lot.
A lot.
Not by pennies.
Well, then you must have.
Small points, like
Yeah.
after.
Yeah, so
But I probably
I
did something wrong.
think you did. Okay. May I proceed? Okay, thank you. So, put call parity. Tell me if I get this wrong. Does that look right? Okay, that's how we do it with the E. Okay, now, they are asking us for, what are they asking us for? The price of a put option. How do I get the price of a put option out of this thing? I just subtract the stock price from both sides. P sub 0 is equal to C sub 0 plus E times e to the negative R T minus S sub 0. So far, so good? Okay, how much is the value of a call option? 350. And these all have the same strike price, and they all have the same time to maturity. 350 plus, what's the exercise price? 74 times e to the negative, what is the risk-free rate? 3% per year, 0.03. And how long do we have to maturity on this thing? 3 months, is that right?
So it's like 12.
Yeah, so here's what I would do. I would say 3 divided by 12, and my t is going to be 0.25. And as long as the rate and the time period have the same time scale, so if this is per year, you want to put this in years. If this is per month, you want to put this in months. Okay, minus, what's the stock price? 70. Okay, now, here's what I would do first if I were you. I'm going to do this bit right here, and I'm going to hit plus minus, and then we'll see how to do this. In fact, I don't have my calculator up, so you guys are going to have to do it. 0.03 times 0.25. And then hit your plus, minus. And now, do you see the key that says LN?
Yeah.
Okay, so now, you don't have the right number in there.
No, I calculated.
You went ahead and did it. You are just so fast. Okay, so here's what you want to do. You want to hit second ln. Second ln. You're going to hit second ln. And what does that number look like?
0.99.
0.99 something, right? Okay. So go ahead and multiply that by 74. 73.44 or something, does that sound right? Okay, now add 350. Subtract 70.
6.95.
6.95. And that's what we're getting there. Put call parity. Now, on an exam, let's to your point, let's go ahead and do 74 divide by, what if we did 74 divide by 1 plus r to the t, 1.03 to the 0.25. So start with this part. What's 1.03 to the 0.25? And then hit the inverse key, 1 over x. And then multiply by 74.
73.45.
73.45, and earlier it was 73.44, right? We're only off by 1 cent, which tells me that Ms. Roll made some other mistake, right?
Yeah, I use y-x instead of 1 over x.
Oh, man. Okay, so here's what I'm telling you. For the sake of a multiple choice exam, this dog is what you want, right? If you're doing this practice stuff where you have to type in the exact number, then this is what you want. Okay. Okay, now this one is the same thing, only they're asking for the call option. And so, I'm not going to work it all out, but I can get you started. Does it say continuously compounded?
Yes.
Yeah, so that means we're still working with the E. How would I get the call option by itself? Yes, so call option by itself is going to be P0 plus S0 minus. Does that make sense? Can you get it from there? Yeah. Okay, so this is going to be the same thing, only it's asking for the current stock price. And so it would just be S sub 0 is equal to C sub 0 plus E to the minus R T minus P sub 0. Is that correct? So that's it. And we are out of time. If you still have questions that you want me to talk to you about, you can come to office hours. I'll be there between 1:30 and 2:30, and you're always welcome to email me with questions. Please copy and paste the question and the answers into your email.